Welcome to our second edition of the CRYENGINE Discord AMA. And AMA, as you might or might not know, stands for Ask Me Anything. We usually say Ask Me Almost Anything because we try to keep it a bit on topic, because we have our expert here today, which is Michael Boschert, who is our resident C# expert for CRYENGINE.
Hello.
Yep. And your host tonight is me, CRYENIC. You know me, I'm the CRYENGINE community developer. You know me from the forums, from Answer Hub, Discord, and so on and so forth. The team that's supporting us tonight is CryFlair, aka Jeremy, who's in chat right now, and CryAglaya, who's also in chat, our two moderators from Crytek. Thanks, guys, for sitting here with us. They will answer questions about operational things and help me post useful links, etc., but also make sure that everybody sticks to the rules. So the rules, whoever was attending our last AMA as well might already know the rules. They are in the sticky post in this AMA questions channel. But Jazz will post them again, just to remind everybody. I will go through them real quick. Pretty easy. Come to the voice channel, hang out with us, but please mute your microphone when you are not talking, so that we don't have any background noise or whatever. When you have a question, please post it in chat first, so I can basically approve it. When I see a question that we pick for the AMA, then I will call your name, which also makes for some fun sometimes if I horribly mispronounce something. And then you're totally allowed to laugh at me. And then I will ask you if you want to ask your question in voice chat yourself. And if you don't want that done, I will just read that out for you. A follow-up question once you're in voice are allowed. This is a chat after all. Just be mindful because other people might have questions too. So once you are talking, maybe ask 2 or so follow-up questions max, and then let someone else take the microphone again. All right. General, our rules for Discord apply. The usual. One thing that's important to know as well is that we are recording this, like last time as well. So the recording will be on YouTube later on. You can see in the rules that we linked the last AMA Discord recording as well, so you can check that out later on to see what that's about and what it's like. And I think that's it. Any more questions about the operational procedure of the evening? Is this something I should be allowed to do, Spiky Plant? I'm not sure. Let's not try that now, okay? But thanks for pointing it out. Server mute, yeah, I'm gonna look into that later, okay? Right. So I think we're almost set. I see many people here who have their microphone muted, except Sunlock. Right.
It's off though.
What?
Off though, I just put it up.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much. So, Michael,
Yes.
welcome and thanks for being here tonight with me or us. Michael is our resident C# expert. And why don't you tell the community a bit about yourself and what you're doing?
Right, so I'm Michael. I've been working for 2.5 years now, or almost 2.5 years now at Crytek. I am the maintainer of the CryMono bridge right now in the engine. And besides that, I've also worked a bit on the Cry version selector, which some of you might know, such as packaging, builds, that sort of things. But I mostly focus on C# here.
Michael also did an interview with us lately that is on the CryEngine blog. So he was talking about C# in CryEngine and how we expose more and more functions to C#, how we want to expand on this. And you can read that on the CryEngine news blog. And I guess Ogi or Jeremy will post the link in chat as well for those who want to read up. And I think we can start answering some of the questions that people have posed before that can't be here tonight, because we really like to give people an option to get their questions in even if they can't make it because time zones or whatever. And then they can later on listen to them on the recording. And we had one question from Almost. Just to double check, are you here today? So Almost's question was, What's the big plan for C# in CRYENGINE? Is it something like Unity 3D where all functionality is exposed to C#?
Right, so right now we use Swig to expose everything, or everything from CryMono or CryCommon that we can expose. But since Swig is auto-generated, sometimes it doesn't really do the thing that you expect it to do. So what we're looking into is actually getting rid of Swig and exposing everything manually by ourselves, which means that we, the developers, will be in control of which things are exposed, how the memory is handled, but this will take a long time. So yes, our big plan for C# is to expose as much as possible, but this will take time. We will not make this in 1 month or something. So I hope that answers the question.
All right. Let's see. I see C++ questions. That's not a C# question. Sunlock, do you want to ask your follow-up question in chat, in voice chat?
So does this mean that we can expose our own game stuff easier manually, so we don't need to use Swig for our own classes?
That would be one of the goals we would look into. Right now, that's still hard-coded for certain in-engine parts. For example, where we have the entity stuff is already done without Swig. And we're working right now on exposing physics in the same way. And of course, we want to do the same thing for game code as well. But we also understand that the way it works right now for example, the entity and the physics that we're working on is that it's maybe a bit too hard to expose this easily. So we're actually looking into how can we also make this easier for every C# programmer, that they can interact with C++ and C# at the same time. But this is all still being researched and being developed at the moment.
Okay.
Josh is trolling a bit. You want to ask your question, Josh? Oh, you're not even in the voice channel.
He was in. I think he couldn't join the voice channel.
I see. At work still. Okay, so Josh's question is, how far behind is the C# API, and when will it likely be viable for the entire engine?
So, I mean, yeah, the engine will constantly be evolving. But if we expose something manually from C# or from C++ to C#, and then the C++ changes, then that means it wouldn't compile anymore. So whoever changed the API needs to fix this anyway, because internally we can't submit it unless it compiles. So in that case, we would have fixed those issues. But it would be a continuous effort from the C# team to constantly work on making the C# API to be on the same version pretty much as the C++ API. So it will take a lot of work from us. So that's also actually what we're afraid of, is that it will take a lot of work from everyone from us to constantly keep C# up to date if we remove Swig. But we do think it is a bigger benefit than that it will drag us down like Swig is doing right now.
Cool. All right. We had another question.
About the UI there?
Yeah, that one. Sif, are you in voice chat, and do you want to ask your question in voice chat? No. Okay. Then I will just read out the question, and if you decide to unmute the microphone and ask a follow-up question, that is also fine. So, will C# GUI programming the way to go in the future, or will still Flash development for GUI? I think a couple verbs were missing there, but we get the gist of it, right?
Mm-hmm. So right now, if you were to make a UI in C++, you would use a skill form for this. And if you want to do a UI in C#, you can't just use the same skill form as you would do in C++, or I mean, you can't access all the functions that you would need. So that's why we also have the C# UI right now, but this one is completely temporary. So we are looking into a way to have a UI solution that works in both C++ and C# and also integrates nicely with all the rest of the engine, of course. So that's where we want to go to, but still, again, this is being researched right now. There's no big announcement about this yet. So for now, we make sure that the C# UI is working, and for C++, we make sure that skill form is working.
Does that answer your question? All right. What about this one? Jasko, you want to ask your question about templates? I'm going to read out your question loud, okay? Yep. Yeah, I'm going to read it. Where was
That's
it there?
that
So let's see. My question for Miron is, when will more C# templates be added in the CE launcher?
That's a really good question. So what we're actually looking into is what we want to do is, of course, have the same templates for C++ and C# again. So whatever programmer you are, doesn't matter if you do C# or C++, you can do the same things. But we're also very much aware that the templates really need some love. So we're actually now working on upgrading the templates for C++, like checking like what do we need to fix or need to do to make them better. And once we have that, we port the C++ templates back to C#. Because if we would now make them all for C# as well, then we have double the work of things that we might need to process later on.
That a good answer to your question?
Right.
Indeed it is. Very good.
Good.
All right. I just saw something about documentation from Ratchet. You want to ask in chat? Because yes, Jesko is right that the documentation, like the whole writing, is usually done by the documentation team, but it's a team effort, so we can still answer some questions about technical documentation especially. So if you want to go for it, Ratchet, feel free to unmute your microphone and ask your question.
Oh, he's typing. All right. I mean, I can mention something about the C#
Yeah, we can.
documentation.
And actually, yeah, Spiky Plant's voice is worth $20 on PayPal, actually. I heard him before. So that's cool. No, but yeah, technical documentation, we can definitely talk about it a little. You want to say something about it, Michael?
Well, I can already mention that we did a rework of the technical documentation, and I'm actually really impressed with the work that's been done there, especially the C++ API is being documented on the docs pages right now, and the C# API also has a new space there. And the cool thing about this is that we, the developers, can really easily add examples in C++, and these will automatically also end up on the documentation page. So as soon as you need a function and you want to know how to use this function in your code, you can find this in one of the examples for C++ there. And right now we only have these examples for C++, but we want to have the same functionality again for C#, so we can, of course, make them equal again.
That a good answer to your question, Ratchet? Cool. Awesome. It already looks a million times better. Yes, thank you.
It's good to hear. I'll
Perfect.
let the person that worked on this know.
Yeah, definitely. They did a great job with that one. Let's see, what's... Igrau Besruk. I really don't know how to pronounce this. Do you want to ask your question in voice chat? No. I'm good, fine. Okay. So your question is, any complete tutorials from scratch in C# is planned? I mean from complete scratch, so some game state with working game logic.
Well, actually, we are working together with our learning
Manager.
Learning manager.
Yeah,
that was the title.
Exactly.
With Brian, who takes care of our making sure that we have proper tutorials and that people can learn how to use the CRYENGINE. And C# is actually one of the planned tutorials to come out. We're still working on it, so I can't tell too much about like what's going to be in there, but it is supposed to bring you from how do I start from nothing and actually get something working that doesn't just look like the template, but actually has a proper game.
Yeah. I talked to Brian about that today briefly, and he said that they have a draft and they definitely want to do this, like Michael said. It's just the question of when exactly it's going to happen, but we want to do this for a lot of systems in the engine, actually, to have more comprehensive tutorials that build up on each other, so that people have a better way to follow from scratch, like start something from scratch and follow through with a whole project, so that the actual episodes of the tutorials build up on each other and get more complex to explain the systems of the engine a bit better. And C# is no exception there. Brian is hard at work, and Colin as well. So we will update you about this when we have more information. What else do we have?
Question for me.
Yeah.
Is it already possible to load free C# files from, say, the asset folder and use it in a script manner? Or do they need to be added to a solution?
You mean if you add a C# file to the asset browser?
Asset folder, yeah, like Lua scripts. So you just use them as freestanding files.
If I understand you correctly, you actually can already do this in the latest preview builds, where you can do this in the asset folder yourself, of course, but you can also do this from inside the sandbox. You can right-click in the asset browser and then create a new C# file. It's actually one of the new features from 5.5. And then you instantly have an entity component there. It's a template file that we load with all the things that the bare bones entity component needs, and you can just start programming in there immediately.
And it will also be added to the Visual Studio solution.
It will be added to a separate solution for the sandbox, but you can actually add the project for this, the C# project, to your plugins solution. And that way you can actually develop both the plugin and the sandbox code at the same time.
Sandbox code?
Yeah, I mean, so if you add a C# file to your assets in the asset browser, a new solution will be generated in the project folder, which contains all the assets, or is a solution for all the C# assets you have in your project.
Yeah, that's exactly what I meant. But speaking about editor, will we also be able to extend the editor itself via C#?
It is part of our, on our roadmap, it's actually mentioned as well that we are researching this. And personally, I really want to do this in C#. But right now, it's not possible yet, but it is being researched.
I mean, UI is probably a bit harder, thanks to Qt. I would assume that UI is probably a bit harder to do in C# with Qt and all.
Yeah, that's actually one of the bigger things that we're researching. Like, how are we going to solve making UI in the CRYENGINE? Are we exposing a separate API for making UI, or are we actually exposing Qt, for example, to C#? But that's all part of the development or the research that we will need to do.
Okay, nice.
Cool, thanks, Sunlock. Okay, do we have any more questions? Except for Spiky Plant desperately trying to sell his voice for hire. It's worth it, though. So Alex is skipping ahead and is starting with the personal questions here. You want to come ask your question in voice chat, Alex? No! Oh!
I'm a big fan of the Revision Shader Showdown final of 2 years ago. That one was impressive, but that's also all my experience with the demo scene.
Yeah, the question was, so I heard you are a big fan of the demo scene. Can you tell us a little bit more about it?
And I hope my answer was good enough for Alex.
I'm waiting. Meh. Meh. But okay. Right. What about this one? Is that a question?
There is...
Wait. If that's a question we will pick, then I have to read it. Or you can read it. You can read it as well. I don't have to do this. Or you can pay Spiky Plant $20 and he will read it for you. So Ratchet's question is, wait, doesn't Qt have C# bindings? Or is that with their free license?
As far as I know, there is a C# version for Qt where we can have C# bindings indeed. But we need to check if this is viable for our Qt in the engine, if they're compatible together, and if this is actually what we want to do for our for the plugins, because they might actually hold us back if we directly go for Qt, and maybe we want our own API to make it simpler for everyone.
Does that answer your question, Ratchet? Cool. By the way, you guys can ask any questions you like, because it's an Ask Me Anything. But we are trying to prioritize C# questions, of course, because we have Michael here right now, and we want to take advantage of that. So I'm going to look through all the stuff that you guys post and try to answer the C# questions first. Jesko, did you fix your connection? Do you want to try to ask your question again?
Okay, how do I sound?
Good.
Yeah, It's good now.
Awesome. All right, Michael. My question is, when will component access via C# be handled in a more intuitive manner? For example, you have to access geometry via entity, even when doing a Git component. But I think it would probably make more sense to do a Git component on the component called mesh for handling rendering.
I actually completely agree with you there. But in this case, it's actually part of the legacy that we have to work with here, where more stuff is being handled through the entity itself instead of through a component on the entity. I mean, we already are working on making more stuff component based, so I can actually imagine that in the future we will also have a mesh component from which you can access the mesh or the geometry in a more intuitive manner. But I'm not sure if we will remove this functionality from the entity itself based on legacy code that we have. I can't really answer this because the entity system is completely on Alex actually. So maybe he can tell us, but this is as far as I know it.
Also, is it really more intuitive, or is it just more the way that Unity is doing it? Because I don't see it as something that's more intuitive, really.
It really depends on the person. So for people coming from Unity, it's probably more intuitive to do it through a mesh component. For people that worked with CRYENGINE before, it's probably more intuitive to not do this through a component. But yeah, we will have to see what we'll do in the future. But again, this is the entity system, and I can't decide how that one will change. So that you will have to ask Alex or beg from Alex to change it if you want to.
All right, sounds good.
Right.
Also, Sunlock, we're getting some feedback from your microphone at times, so can you please mute it when you're not speaking? Thank you. Let's see if there are more questions. Now they are coming in. All right. Wait, scrolling too fast. What about this one?
That's Freddy, yeah.
Cool. You want to read it out loud?
Well, it's not a question though. It's more. I mean, he's worked with C# a lot as well, and a lot with Swig.
Where you can just come and talk. I think they just joined the channel, so if you have a question, I can't pronounce that name. That is written here.
Doesn't have a microphone.
I mean, it's up for discussion, isn't it? So the discussion point was, then again, the whole mesh component setup came from the schematic side, so quite separate from C# and any Unity influences. So that was the discussion point, basically. Yeah. Not exactly a question, but cool. I have a microphone. Spiky Plant still wants your money, so he can give you a voice. I think that's a very good offer. Let's see. Now I have more questions. Yes, Phoenix. So let's see. What do we have here?
Can actually make one remark about what Josh asked there.
So Josh asked, where do you see the future of C# within CRYENGINE?
So to answer that one, we are trying to expand C# as much as possible, of course. So we are actually also hiring more people for the C# team. So that's where currently the future for C# with CRYENGINE would be, that we're working on expanding it more than what it is currently. And we want to add more people to the team.
And actually we are hiring right now, so I guess that would be a good time for Oggy and Jess to post a link to our hiring section, because if there are any C# programmers around who would like to work on CRYENGINE and help us make it better, there's your chance right there. Mm-hmm. And we would be happy to receive your application. Okay, I see another one from
Josh again.
From Josh again, yes. Will C# GUI ever get a visual editor and sandbox? Is it GUI, by the way? How do you pronounce it?
Depends on who you ask. If you ask Philip, he will tell you it's not pronounced GUI because that's goo.
Yeah. I also think it sounds gooey.
I like the word GUI. It's
okay.
Great. But
yeah.
It's...
Is it called GUI though? I think I'm with Philip here. I'm not sure. Is this the old question? Is it GIF or GIF or...
Yeah, or GUI. That's one way.
Yeah. All right.
But yeah, to answer that question,
so I will rephrase it again because people get offended. Will C# GUI ever get a visual editor and sandbox?
The current implementation from C# UI will most likely not get an implementation in the sandbox or a visual editor for it. But once we get a unified UI system, then we will actually look into how we can make this the best way in the editor. So that could be either a separate editor for it or maybe one that's actually implemented in the engine. But that's still in research, of course, so can't make any promises in there.
So yeah, just because the question about relocation came up, so you don't have to be German or you don't have to be in Germany to apply for this position. Yes, relocation is a thing. We also support your relocation efforts to a degree. Also, work visa, etc., is totally possible. It just depends. Our HR department is usually very good in supporting our new hires when it comes to immigrating into Germany. And if you have more questions about that, feel free to ping me also later. We also have the jobs channel here on the Discord server, which I will post the C# position to as well. And I'm happy to answer questions there as much as I can. In any case, if you apply and our HR department will come back to you, they are also very happy to answer all your questions, and they can do that a bit better than I can because HR-related things, they will have the lowdown about this. I probably will tell you something that isn't quite up to date anymore, although I try to stay on top of things. But yeah, I can definitely say relocation in general, we help. Crytek is a very international company. At the moment, for example, Michael is Dutch. I am from Germany originally, but we have, I think, over 80 nationalities.
Yeah, I didn't count.
Yeah,
we have a lot.
A lot. So yeah, don't be shy. Just apply. Oh my god, that rhymed. Horrible. Cool. Was my networking support question, Finchy? Was that about C#? Sorry, maybe I didn't get it because the chat gets really... yeah.
The multiplayer question I can't really say anything about. It's very far out of my area.
Yeah, so Finchy was asking about documentation and more support on multiplayer and matchmaking servers for games. I mean, what I can say is, so I can't go into too much detail about this, and it's not also not Michael's direct jurisdiction, but what I can say is we are very much making a multiplayer matchmaking game right now, where these areas of expertise are needed, and we are doing it already. So of course we always try to bring the things that we develop for Hunt into the engine build so everybody can benefit from that. I can't say when this will happen or what exactly will happen, but I can find out. So I will definitely take a note and will try to get more information about this for Finchy. So just let me write that down real quick. Ollie is asking what is C#. Michael is very good in explaining what C# is with buckets.
I'm pretty sure Ollie knows what C# is. Because I was talking about C# with him yesterday.
Very good.
But I can actually explain it to some people. So C# is a programming language, just as C++ is a programming language. But it has some difference with C++. And one of the differences, for example, is that compared to C++, is that C# compiles way quicker. So if you make quick adjustments and want to test them immediately, that's way easier to do with C# than it is with C++. So that's actually for gameplay. C# is actually really nice to quickly prototype certain gameplay with. That's also why we integrated in the CRYENGINE, so you can really quickly get your gameplay in there, test it. If it doesn't work, you can change it immediately, test it again, and continue like that.
Does that answer your question, Ollie?
He's not even in this chat.
Then I just assume that we answered it.
Any more questions about what is C#?
Kinda, not really. A bit C# related though. How many of the mathematics and linear algebra functions did you re-implement in C#, and how much stuff is called into C++ code for?
So originally when C# shipped, it was just directly going, for example, with the fact3 functions, it was directly going into Swig and then to C++. But we did notice that this was causing quite some overhead. So now we actually switched for the vector3 class, or we created our own vector3 struct, vector2, vector4, matrix class or structs. And all these calculations on these are now actually being handled inside C# itself.
Yeah, that's why I asked, because usually if you do this for a lot of questions, not questions, operations, it's usually quite the overhead. So it would be nice to know which of those are a native C# and which are calling into C++ code.
Yeah, so if you're working in C#, you can pretty much assume that every function that's being called on vector3 or vector2 or what was the other, vector4 and the matrix structs. So if it's a struct in C#, you can assume it's happening on the C# side. And at the last moment, for example, when you set the position for an entity, at the final moment when it finally sends the position to C++, that's the moment where we convert it back to a vec3, which is being used in C++. And that's where the actual conversion happens. So it should only happen once, for example, when you set position, instead of constantly for every multiplication and that sort of things.
Does that answer your question?
Yeah, it does. Thank you.
Cool, thanks. And what Oggy is saying is basically, it's fine when some people are more vocal than others. We just want to make sure that we have a bit of variety with the questions. So that's why usually the rule is to first type the question in chat. And then we pick a question and then we call out to you. And then we'd be like, hey, do you want to ask your question in voice chat? But we pick your questions from chat first just to make sure that everybody gets a run at it. You know, that's what she meant. Cool.
I do think we have some C# questions.
Yeah, I think up there, this one, maybe.
And the one above it, but I think Freddy already kind of answered it.
Yeah.
So if we used C# in Hunt, no, Hunt doesn't use C#, sadly. But
Sadly, my craft is not valued. Alessandro Melvazul, are you in chat? You are. Do you want to ask your question in the voice chat?
Yes, no problem. The C# one?
Yeah.
Okay, so why should we create a project using C# over C++ or vice versa? Obviously, despite one being faster than the other at compiling it.
That's a pretty good question, actually. Of course, this massively depends on what kind of project you're working on and also what your goals are. So, for example, if you have a project, like for example an RTS game where you have to manage hundreds of AI and it all needs to run real time at 60 frames per second, then obviously you want to go for C++ because you can squeeze out the last bit of performance from your PC that you need. But if you, for example, go for a simpler project or maybe even a larger project, but where you just want to test out some gameplay, then you can actually easily go for C# because development with it is faster. So you can quickly compile, check it again, and that's actually the big benefit of C#. The other part, of course, is also if you have 5 C# developers in your company and no C++ developers, then obviously you want to go for a C# project. Otherwise, you'll be spending so much time just learning a new language first. But also the other way around, of course. If you know a lot of C++, then you don't go for C# all of a sudden. Does that answer it?
Yes. Yes.
All right.
Thank you.
Did I miss any questions?
Are there more questions?
Alex is asking what happens when you call when you initialize an enum and you call new on this enum. We recently found out that this is not the same as not initializing it at all. It is actually performing 2 more operations, I think, in assembly. I'm not sure what it was again, but it is indeed slower to call new on an enum than it is to just let it initialize by itself. But that's also who in his right mind would actually call new on an enum. That's not something you do. But yeah, that's what happens if we let C++ programmers here have a hand at C# apparently.
Okay. I'm seeing a couple more questions that aren't C# related. I'll just pick a few. So basically, because I'm just seeing the one from Andre there, sorry for repost, but any news on 5.5 release? Just to say that real quick, we are still working on the preview, so the next release will definitely be a preview and not final release, but the final release is not too far out. And we'll notify you as soon as we know more about that. Other things, will Crytek open more offices in different countries? That's a BizDev decision, so I wouldn't say no and I wouldn't say yes, because it's definitely not my decision, but I haven't heard any of it. So far, I don't think the chances are very high. We are hiring a lot of people in Frankfurt. We also have Kiev. And I think right now there are no plans to expand. But yeah, you will probably learn about it if we do. But we're not coming to Canada, Finchy, I think. Not anytime soon, so... Sorry. 5.5.5, mind blown. Yeah, isn't it? It's pretty. Do we want him to ask his question?
Yeah, we can try.
Okay, Phoenix, you're on again. It's always the same people. Ask your question, Phoenix.
Sorry. What has been the hardest part about supporting C# with CryEngine?
The hardest part, in my opinion, actually, there's a few hard parts in our implementation with C#. I think Swig would definitely be one of them, because as long as Swig works as you expect it to, then everything is fine. But as soon as something breaks in Swig, it can be immensely hard to figure out how to fix it. So that's one of them. The other one is, I think probably also quite obvious, is memory. So trying to, we've run into quite some memory bugs with C# and C++. One actually quite recently where I was overriding all the memory, I was overriding all the memory in C++ by accident because I missed one simple thing in C#. And I think that would definitely be one of the hardest, actually, managing the memory of C# and C++, especially with C# not having all the tools available to actually manage the memory, because it's expecting you to have it to have it managed by C# itself.
That answers your question?
Yes, it does.
Oh, was another voice there? Or?
That was me. I was hearing the feedback through his microphone. I think the connection is a bit slow. Where are you again? You are somewhere in China, right?
Yeah, I'm in Zhengzhou, China, and I'm running through a VPN right now.
I see.
That's
Okay.
impressive.
Cool. Let's see. What else do we have here? So you want to answer that one?
Let's see.
Sunlock.
Yeah,
You can
the
ask your
threading
question. You're allowed. I'm handing you the microphone.
What I wanted to know is how threading and async operations work with the C# implementation and CryEngine, especially calls from different threads into C# code or back.
So as long as it stays in C#, it should be fine, but it probably will run into issues as soon as you start to call things that are in the engine itself, so in C++ code, especially if those areas expect to be run on the main thread. So I assume that Mono handles threading most of the time as you would expect in C#. So keep it in C#, then it will be fine, but as soon as you start sending stuff to C++, expect to have issues. And yeah, we don't handle it that nicely yet, that if something goes wrong in C++, that you get a nicely formatted error in C# or an exception in C#. That's actually what we're looking into, that error handling will improve as well for this kind of cases.
So would it be possible to expose the locking and concurrency functionality from the engine code to C# so that you can, let's say, just call into the engine and say lock and access other variables from other threads?
You mean using C++ as locking mechanics, or?
Well, yeah, like some messaging system between C# and C++, like some of the modules themselves use internally?
I haven't looked into this at all, actually, so I can't answer it. So of course, I think it is possible, but I'm not sure if it's already possible. So sorry, I can't answer that completely.
Still, thank you for your question. Augie wants to ask a question as well. So what was the funniest thing you've ever experienced regarding C#?
Well,
how much fun is your job, Michael? Tell me, how much fun?
I actually have one interesting, I'm not sure if I should call it a bug or a feature yet. But today,
Working as design.
It was really interesting because I was trying to fix a memory leak. So I was keeping an eye on the amount of memory that was being used in the task manager, and I let my the sandbox run my code for about half an hour. But instead of my memory increasing like I expected, it was actually decreasing no matter the longer I had the sandbox open. So that's why I think it might actually be a feature where I'm optimizing the memory of the engine.
Nice.
But this was one of the most interesting bugs I've found so far.
Augie, you want to QA this? Oh, you have a new task, yes. Because Aglaya is actually one of our QA testers for the engine. So she does a very stellar job at that. And if one of you guys previously submitted an issue over GitHub, for example, then chances are high that she was actually QAing it and putting it into our Jira board so that our engineers can be tasked with fixing it. So yeah, if you have any bugs, issues, just let Augie know. She can probably help, or at least get you some help. Yes,
right.
spotlight it is. Yeah, whoever asks questions gets the spotlight. Cool. So what else do we have? I think Finchy was asking a rendering question. I don't think we can ask rendering questions right now.
I'm very much out of sight of that area, so
Yeah,
I can't
yeah.
answer.
Me too, to be fair. So that is a bit difficult right now. When will we see more starter game samples, like, say, a small zombie levels, base ones, etc.? Starter levels, do you mean like samples, templates?
I would assume that this also plays in with what Brian is working on.
Yeah.
It's in more materials in general.
In the game SDK. Okay. Oh no. She said game SDK. No. I don't know, but I know that I don't know about updates to the SDK. But I know that definitely Brian and Colin are working on some basically sample levels that are meant to be the part of a tutorial and the setting for a tutorial, but they are also meant to be samples that you can probe and pick apart to see what's happening inside and how things are put together and how stuff works. So we definitely want to be more wholesome like that and release more sample levels that are not just part of the tutorial, but also kind of a kit bashing thing. I wouldn't call it an SDK, but yeah, we definitely plan on releasing more content like this.
And also the one part that we of course want to improve after we've worked on the game SDK is that the game SDK is of course massive and it has a lot of information, but trying to figure out where you need to get this information can be quite hard. So we are also focusing on making more samples that you can actually quickly use.
Cool. So any more questions? I mean, you guys had a lot of questions. That's good. When will Crysis 4 written in C# be released?
I would love to see that happening.
So Michael, new task. Stop everything else.
Although
Here we go.
I would assume that it would be named something like Crysis Sharp or something.
Yeah, sharp, Crysis sharp. Hashtag crisis. I'm just looking into some questions that people who currently aren't here have asked in advance, but most of them aren't C# related, actually. Because we want to prioritize C# questions. Yeah. People keep asking about Linux. So I have seen that a lot lately, and basically all I can say about Linux right now is it's not a priority, but it is on the research and development list, and we are looking into it. Someone said Linux? Yeah, exactly. Yeah. This question happens always.
The bigger maps.
Yeah, that's always the question, when will we have a big world or bigger map support in CRYENGINE? And the answer is always, it is on the research and development list.
Yep.
But it's not a priority right now, so I can't tell you when this is going to happen, but we're looking into it. And some of the technology in the research and development team that I have seen looks very, very promising.
Mm-hmm.
But we have to prioritize development of features that are also there's always hunt, of course. So because we also have our own games, like I said, the networking part, for example, matchmaking is something that at the moment we're making progress in because we're using it in our own games, the game that we currently develop and support the most. But these things, they change quickly. So something is on research and development, and I can't tell you now when it's going to be there. Maybe tomorrow I have an answer, because then we update the roadmap and something changes. But yeah, the things that are under research and development are there for a reason, because it means that they aren't currently prioritized in the development process. But let's be rest assured, when world map, big world support is coming, I will probably shout it from the rooftops, because I know you guys totally need this and you want this in your life, and I will update you as soon as I hear anything about it. Now everybody give Kiara a big heart, please, because she deserves it. Yes, because Kiara is one of our office dogs.
Yep.
And very much a part of the development team, because she boosts motivation a lot. And now Philip will complain again that we're using his dog. She loves it, actually. She loves attention.
All the dogs in this office love the attention.
There needs to be an MMO example project. Anything else with that?
I mean,
chocolate sauce on top.
I would say that MMO is probably the most specialized type of game you can get, probably.
Yeah.
It has such high demands that there's no example MMO that you can easily create.
I know someone, so I think there is a dev who is currently trying, well, he's not trying, he is making an MMO in CRYENGINE, but I'm not sure which version he's on. I would have to double check. But yeah, it is possible. Everything's possible. Make a game button is in Cry version selector. We called it package build. Yes.
It's a really good feature, yeah.
Yeah, definitely. So yeah, we technically we now have a make game button. Let me see, what else do we have here? Kiara größer Philip? Kiara
is better than
Philip.
That's pretty much what it's saying.
Yeah. Well, as soon as Kiara can learn programming again and types away,
then we don't need Philip anymore.
We don't need Philip anymore. Ratchet has another. Yeah, I think that question came up before. Was that also you, Ratchet, talking about asset flips and what we think about that? Yeah, that was your question, right? I saw that scroll by. Yeah, I mean, if you're working in the games industry and you make games and you know how much effort is poured into, and your heart and soul is poured into a really good game. And also I see this every day with the other indie devs that use the engine. Yeah, so Ratchet's question is what do we think about asset flips? And he says, I was just generally curious, as it really infuriates me as someone who spends 2 to 3 years on a project. It's not so much that it's infuriates me, and I can only speak about me in this situation. I just think that some people buy this stuff, okay? So there seems to be a demand. I wouldn't know why anybody would buy such a weird asset flip game, because they are usually also not good. Because it's not just the assets, right? It's the gameplay, it's everything. Most of them are broken. I think it's kind of it's like a train wreck kind of thing, maybe. Mm-hmm. Like there's a scene for these things now, because they're very, very cheap. And some people, I think, just like to watch the world burn. So they buy these things, and I'm like, okay, right, maybe this is just not my target group, or our target group. But I'm genuinely happy that there are so many great CryEngineers in the community who keep making great games, and I love to highlight these games. That's what Humble Bundle is for. No. No, Spiky Plant, that's not what Humble Bundle is for.
Well, to increase your... I think it's on the previous comment there. To increase the amount of games that you have on Steam.
Ah, true.
And Humble Bundle does work wonders for that, yeah.
That is true. That is actually true. But yeah, I think some people, that's also true. Some people just want more games in their Steam library, or, of course, achievements and trading cards and all that stuff that's happening. So yeah, that happens. But I personally think there's demand for good games, and you can always ask more money for good games. And you should, as a creator, you should make something that you're proud of. Of course, you want to live from it as well. But generally speaking, I would rather do a good job, have a great team, and make something I can be proud of as my legacy as well, and then make a couple bucks with it, than just churning out asset flips right, left, and center. Valve have removed cards from the cheap flip games. That's good, I guess. Yeah. Why though? Yeah, I don't know why people do this. I can't think about many things, but at the end of the day, I just appreciate that our community builds great games, and whenever somebody has a cool project to show off, then I'm happy to support it and to give it a signal boost with our channels as well, while I surely wouldn't do that for cheap asset flicks. Because why?
Yeah.
So, any more questions? Several people are typing. Menacing.
Oh boy.
Menacing. Let's wait 3 seconds.
Oh well. That's disappointing.
Okay. Alessandro, you want to ask your question in voice chat?
Okay, no problem. First question. Does Crytek as a team which focus on making tutorials, showcasing, and so on? Because, for example, I have seen that most of the times, in comparison to other engines, such as Unreal Engine, Unity, and Godot, when searching for a tutorial for, I don't know, global illumination, most of the results will come from user and not from Cry itself.
Okay. So, to answer your question, we have a small team that does tutorials, but Brian, our learning manager who is doing this, that is not his only task, because he's also doing the certification program and everything. And also Colin is helping him. Colin has done a massive job on tutorials. I think last year or the year before, he churned out like 100 tutorials or something. So we have a small, very dedicated team that is doing this. But I believe that our team is surely not as big as Unity's or Unreal's, which is why, well, our company isn't as big as Unity or Unreal. And they have been around in the market with their engine as a product for a longer time than we have. So we have a lot of catch-up to do, basically. But we're happy that there are many dedicated community members who help out. And if you do tutorials yourself, by any means, please let us know, because we would be happy to engage with you and help to signal boost your tutorials. If you want to see tutorials from us, you can put that in the channel, in our tutorial and learning channel, and then we will prompt this to Brian and Colin, who will then try to make it happen. But yeah, definitely the team is there, very dedicated but small, and rather young. Like, it has come together in this fashion only, I think, 6 months ago. But we're really dedicated to put out more tutorials. You will find more GIFs, tutorials, and explanatory videos in our documentation as well, as we're keep overhauling and progressing and making it better and enhancing it. And Colin is really making a great job in that regard. So hopefully this will all get much better in the future. By the way, some videos are coming to YouTube in the next couple weeks, because we have our masterclass format where we interview people from inside Crytek who actually work with the engine in production or who are actually part of the engine team and know very intricately about the systems. And we do a little webinar format with them. And then afterwards, we record this and then we put it online. And I know this isn't exactly a tutorial because it's mostly explaining a feature in the engine and how to best leverage and use it with a certain use case. But we will have some of them coming in the next couple of weeks. So there will be more learning content. In general, Brian is working on a new series. He's still recording a lot of Flappy Boyd so that you will have a complete video course with it. So you don't have to just go by the PDF. And yeah, Colin also records more tutorials and videos, and some of them are, I think, already in the documentation.
Okay, if we the user, can request the Crytek for a tutorial on a specific thing, for example, the procedural geometry or, I don't know, global illumination and so on.
Yes, you can. So here in the Discord, for example, and also in the forums, there is a channel for tutorials and learning. You can request something, but the thing is that what we do is we take it, we put it on a list, and then we hand it over to the team and they start prioritizing things. A good way for us to see if a tutorial topic is wanted by many people, because of course then we prioritize it, is when you put your tutorial suggestion into Answer Hub, into the idea space. So the idea space on Answer Hub is also there. You can also ask for tutorials there, and then other people can vote on them. So we will always prioritize a tutorial request that has more votes over one that has lesser votes, because we have to find out which tutorials we should focus on, which content is most relevant for most users, and that's usually how we do it.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
The chat erupted a bit, so what's happening? Let's see what happened.
What projects I'm working on in my own time?
Yeah.
Or should we ask him to ask the question himself? Or?
Well, now we already said it,
Yeah.
so...
I'm sorry.
Yeah. So yeah, Jesko is asking, what projects do you work on in your own time?
So I was actually working. I like to work on some C# projects in my free time, and then I was actually investigating like how good is the performance of C# in general compared to, for example, C++. So I was working on making a very minimal own engine in C#, as in I can draw a quad and I can make add a texture to it. But it was also more as a learning experience for myself in figuring out like what's happening there with DirectX and how do I interact with this from C#. How do we then handle it that it goes to Windows code or to Windows and sends signals? So that was one of the projects. And another one was actually that I was working in my free time on a coding test for our C# programmer application that's being open right now. Mm-hmm. Because, of course, we need to test if our tests are properly. And yeah, I always enjoy doing tests as well, so that was fun in my free time.
I guess that answers the question. Oh, how many... Bomb Jovi, are you in voice chat? You
Yes.
are. That's not a C# related question, but do you want to ask you a question about Crytek in voice chat?
And he's typing.
Spiky Plant wants to ask your question. Now he's doing it for free even. He doesn't even want $20 anymore. Go ahead. You don't know the question? Well, scroll up. It was 6:39. That's the timestamp of that question.
Well, for us.
For us, true. You don't have a scroll wheel. You have nothing. It's so sad.
But I guess we can also say the question then, or there.
Of course I can read. I can read. Michael. I'm just
check.
messing with him. Just messing with him. How many people are currently working at Crytek? I saw somewhere that the number was around 600. I wondered how many are in the games department and how many are in the engine one. Yeah, Spiky Plant already answered that question because he saw through me. It's just me. Everybody else is just a puppet.
Yep.
I'm actually doing a great job with my impersonating the Dutch accent here.
Exactly.
Benching on my Dutch heritage that I have. Because my dad is actually Dutch, but I don't speak it, so just a huge favor. Yeah.
But I think we had the number in a meeting for this office at least.
Yes.
It was close to 300, 270, but it's including Hunt team as well, of course. So
Yeah,
everybody
so
in Frankfurt.
in Frankfurt office we have about 300 people. I think some more, because I think HR said that in the last 3 months they hired 40 people alone. So it is growing, definitely. But I don't exactly know how many are in the game team and how many are in the engine team.
I don't know exactly.
I can find out. I will write that down. I'm sure I can find out exact numbers.
And on top of that, you also have the Kiev studio, of course,
Yes.
which has quite a few people as well. I'm not sure if we reached the 600 with that.
I don't think so. That might be an outdated information from when we had the UK studio still, but that was a long time ago.
Could have been, yeah.
Yeah, probably. Which wiki is out of date? So where did you find that information? Oh, Wikipedia. So Wikipedia, I don't know if all of you guys know this, but so we as a company are not allowed to change anything about our Wikipedia entry, which means even if we wanted to correct it, we couldn't. So if any of you guys feel obliged to correct or update the Wikipedia article, you would be doing us a great favor. we can't pay you for this, Spiky Plant, because then it's not legit. No $10 is still paying you for it. He's trying really hard to sell himself now. Yeah. I wonder what other services he'll come up with.
One of these days it will work.
I can slip you $10 for free. That's generous. That's so generous. Finchy will do it for 9.99 smiles. I smile all the time, Finchy. All the time. Especially when you walk in. Who wouldn't? Sunlock is asking, can we get a community wiki with bounties without reward for topics that there is an interest in? You want to elaborate on that, Sunlock?
Yeah, what I mean is that we basically have a community-driven wiki for tutorial and documentation topics to take the load off the CRYENGINE team a bit, so that community members can basically write out requests for certain topics that they want, and then have other people from the community write tutorials and articles on it, and then get those validated by the Crytek team.
Yes, good question. So Colin is very much in favor of that, and I am too. Generally speaking, a community wiki is a great thing. We want to have that, but one of the issues that you just kind of scraped on as well is that, of course, even if it's a community wiki, if we host it and we endorse it, it also means that we are partly liable for what's posted there. That means we always have to at least evaluate the content, we have to moderate and maintain it, we have to keep it up. And it can be a lot of work to do that, because if something happens on the wiki, and it can be something, if we are hacked, trolled, whatever, it doesn't even have to be that a community member has bad intentions or anything. We still have to look after it, right? And that needs a team that just does that and helps to keep the wiki clean, which would be the community team ideally. But at the moment, we are only 2 people.
Yeah, I basically meant that as a basic requirement for it, so that it's not just openly editable, but basically that experienced community members can hand in like documentation that you don't need to write yourself. Just like go over and check if it's somewhat correct.
Yes. That was also what we were thinking of doing, possibly. I think that the bounty idea that you had in there maybe Are you talking about some kind of incentive for people who actually are trusted community members who then hand in content? Was that what you meant?
I just meant it basically as a phrase for having like outstanding topics that need to be addressed, not in the sense that there is a reward for it.
Okay. So Colin is looking into the wiki thing together with me and some other people. We still want to make that happen, especially because in the past we had that kinda, and it was good. Right now, it's not a priority because we want to focus on the documentation first, and the teams who are looking into this have different tasks that overlap with the requirements. But generally, we want this. We think it's a good thing to do. We have great and knowledgeable people in the community. We want to give you more leeway and options to contribute to our systems. And we will hopefully make it happen soon, but I can't say when it's going to happen. Good?
Yeah, nice.
Good. It's almost 7. So let's see if we have some last minute questions, anything very urgent or maybe something funny. I know Jesko had a personal question about my hair. Or did he forget about this? Oh no, I reminded him. I probably shouldn't have. Finchie's now asking all the questions, all of them. It's late, people. It's late, people. You have like 5 minutes. Oh no, he did forget about it. Forget about it, Jesko. I never said anything. It's 12:55. 55. Ah, yeah. Well, ask the question about my hair then. Your connection is fixed, so you can, without sounding like Mickey Mouse.
Fair enough. All right. Damn it! Now I can't stop laughing.
Schön.
So tell us, why did you choose purple as your hair color? I thought you'd go with the CRYENGINE colors of blue and black.
So first, the CRYENGINE logo is blue and white, not blue and black. Because that was CRYENGINE 3, and now it's CRYENGINE 5, and that has different colors. And it's not blue, actually. It's 100% cyan. So that is a different thing. But yeah, I had my hair colored cyan, actually. I had that once, but I don't think I have pictures of it, so I can't prove it. So I decided I will just do that again. The next time I'm going to an event, and then I just dye my hair in cyan, and then I can be in line with the brand, and then I will send you some pictures. How about that?
Just blend in with the background.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Cool. Purple is just my favorite color, so that's why it's usually purple. But I don't mind. I don't mind everything for the brand, everything. Also, this company is just me and 300 sock puppets.
Yeah, exactly.
So, so if the logo is changed, it is purple next week. You know what's happening. Any other pressing matters? Dying breath questions? Very important things, funny things. Send actual dogs. Send dog pictures. Oggy, sending dog pictures is your job. Yeah.
Regarding the question of Finchy, I'm not sure if we can actually answer that. I guess it needs to go to...
What was the very urgent question?
The question of, like, the one question to rule them all.
This one?
The one.
When will we see the site updates and changes, roll out of ideas and updates on the gallery and payment system and all? That is the one ring. And it's not even over. It continues. I have heard about the changes but have not seen any. Will they also include ways to edit the marketplace stuff from launcher and site? Maybe even after a certain amount of products are posted, a small custom seller page. Urgent. That's like, okay, I just have to take that ring and go to the volcano. Definitely that was a big question. So let me sort this. The results from answers, do you mean the ideas that are posted on the idea space and when we are going to implement the stuff that's posted there? Okay, so that depends. It depends on the votes, and usually when something goes into development, we change the status to in development. But I have to go through all the answers and questions and do that because I haven't done that in a while. And that's partly due to Answer being a bit broken right now. By the way, if you have trouble logging into Answer Hub, please send us an email at contact@CRYENGINE.com so we can help you out there, because I have seen a couple of tickets coming in lately, so something seems to be a bit off with the Answer Hub integration, and we know that happens sometimes. So please always contact us so we can fix your account, we can make it right for you. Okay, back to the One Ring. NASCOOL's around the corner. So I can't promise you that anything that is upvoted on answers and ideas is going to happen next week. Okay, but we will update the roadmap soon, and then you will probably see when the public roadmap is updated. You will see that some things made it in, and then we will also update the Answer Hub. I hope I can update the Answer Hub before, but latest this will happen with the roadmap update as well. All the other things, Marketplace and all the things. So Marketplace is in development. It's still in beta. It has been for a while. It is a priority for us to enhance Marketplace, and both for sellers and for buyers. And we are working on it very much so. We are also working on adding more payment options. So you will see changes there soon, but I can't tell you a date right now. What else was in that big question?
I just knew I couldn't answer them. It was not my area.
Very, very well. Very well. I'm trying. That is my treat for you. And it's 7 p.m. here. Soon, as in 1 year, I can't tell you the date, Vinci. So I'm gonna... Oh, spiky plant. Also, can I server mute you for that inappropriate word? No. Just no. The docs still incomplete. The screenshots in most pages don't work, and the links sometimes don't work. Okay, so when you find a page in the docs that isn't working, please let us know. We actually...
We do have a documentation
forum thread. Yes.
A forum. I thought we had a page in here or a channel in here, but...
I don't think so. We have general feedback, but not docs.
Oh, right, yeah.
But on the forum, there's a specific dedicated thread for documentation. So the documentation is incomplete. Yes, the engine is a huge thing. I think it will never be fully complete. But when you find things that are broken and definitely shouldn't be broken, like broken screenshots that won't load or links that are broken, please go to that forum thread and let us know, because the docs team is checking. Thanks, Oggy, for posting it. The docs team is actually checking that regularly, and if something is broken like this, then they can fix it. Okay? Jeremy, you're just too quick. Because I saw an answer from Oggy running in, and then suddenly the chat jerked up and it was like, oh no, it's Cryflare. He's faster than lightning. Quicker than Quicksilver.
Raw sock puppets anyway.
Exactly, all my sock puppets. It's all me. Sorry. Good. So guys, it's 7 p.m. here, and I can't keep Michael any longer, okay? I feel bad about it. I want him to enjoy his evening. I hope you enjoy your evening, or whatever is coming next in your time zone. Food, yeah. Enjoy your food. Presumably, yes. Enjoy your food, whatever comes next. Thanks for being here with us. Thanks for the support.
Thanks
Michael, Jeremy, Oggy, thank you all for coming here, being my little sock puppets, and help me entertain the community. Anything you want to say? I mean, you're on there every day. He's CryMiron, so he's on there every day. So actually you can ping him every day, and he's very much one of the most active Crytekers on the Discord channel anyways. But here's your chance to tell them something you always wanted to tell them.
Well, there was one more question there, I think, about what I'm going to do.
He's still working. Oh my god. Okay, there you go.
I am going out for dinner, actually, so I'm looking forward to that.
Question?
Well, that was the question. Or do you want me to ask a question?
Oh, yeah, you can ask them questions. I mean, they asked all the questions. Now it's your turn, I guess.
I didn't prepare for this.
Be spontaneous. Quick.
God, well, a question for... S. Girard then. What's the best Asian place or food in Asian cuisine stuff in Frankfurt? Oh, you can't talk, of course, so you will have to type it.
He can type it.
Yeah.
Then he can pay Spiky Plants $10 to read it out loud.
Oh, right, yeah. Sushimoto. That is
I'd probably go with Sushimoto, but hey, Ikoi is also decent.
Sushimoto is so good. It's also really expensive, but it's really, really good.
I'm gonna keep that in mind. Thank you.
It's one of those places where they prepare the food right in front of you.
Oh,
And
nice.
It's so cool.
See, one more reason to apply. Come here, eat expensive sushi. Excellent. All right. So that was the last straw. I'm pulling the plug because it's late. But like I said, thanks for being here, everyone. And this AMA is going to be up on YouTube soon, TM, as always. Probably next week, if I can make it. The next AMA, because you guys seem to like this format a lot, is probably going to be about sandbox themes, so topics. If I can get someone from the sandbox team to join me. But if you have other ideas, if there's specific stuff you want to know about the engine or teams or whatever, just let me know. Post it here in the hashtag AMA-questions channel, and then we will consider it. All right. So thanks everybody for joining us tonight, and I see you next time.